Okay, so today I wanted to talk about the Flames pending RFAs this summer since they have quite a few. Each one offers an interesting choice. It's not clear cut what to do. And I just want my take on the record before the summer gets here. We'll go descending order of current salary. And also, if I'm widely off on the dollar value, let me know. But I don't think that will really affect my take on these players. The Flames will have tons of cap space one way or another next season, and I don't believe the Flames should be big players in the UFA market, and therefore the more relevant question to me, at least, is what to do with these guys, and what to do with these guys surrounds their term, and not necessarily the exact dollars to give them, since the Flames aren't cap strapped. We'll start with Frost. I mentioned this when I did a look at the Flames center situation. The Flames are in a bit of a tough situation with Frost, as they'll have just over 30 regular season games of him in a Flame sweater as he was traded midseason. How does he look next year with more time to acclimate? Will he continue to be a bit snake bit as he has been this year? All valid questions that with 30 games of sample size I don't think anyone has a good answer to. So to me, what the Flames need to do with Frost before they make the big decision on him is get some more data as it relates to Frost as a Flame. And to me, this means signing him to a 2-year deal. To me, the possible advantages of a short-term deal with Frost outweigh any potential disadvantages. The advantages to a short-term deal being that the Flames get more data to assess Frost and make an informed decision on him, something I think the Flames need to do. And if the team isn't good next year or the year after, you can always flip him at the deadline. Center rentals, especially ones as skilled as Frost, will always net you a first at a minimum, if not more. So that's kind of the advantages that I see to assigning Frost to a short two-year deal. Of course, the big disadvantage could potentially be that if Frost kind of progresses and starts producing like a number 2 center, or even if the Flames absolutely hit the jackpot on this trade and he becomes a 1C, he'll be very expensive to keep at that time, as you'll have to assign him then with that production. That's a problem, no doubt, but really the best kind of problem you could ever want to have as a Flames fan. And the Flames would have all of next summer to get a long-term deal done with Frost if that does happen. So in summary, I would give Frost a 2-year deal ranging somewhere between $5.5 and $6.5 million per year. So next up would be Kevin Bahl. Kevin Bahl, to me, is a very interesting player for going forward. I think the consensus on Bahl would be that ideally he's maybe your 4th best defenseman, like 4 or 5 defensemen, somewhere in that range. But because of his size and how well-groomed his facial hair is, I feel like we often forget that he's still only 24, and I think there might be a bit more untapped potential there for him to grow into being a bit better player with a higher ceiling. This season, he's been no doubt been a top 4 guy for the Flames. That's the first time ever in his career he's been asked to play in that role. And as a second pair guy, it's been a bit of a mixed bag. Him and the pair of Rasmus Andersson have expected goal percentage of 48.9%, which is just slightly below average. So basically, this year he's been a slightly below average number 3 defenseman, as I believe he's the Flames' 3rd most talented defenseman that's played with them the entire year. So I think, in summary, I guess based on the results of this season, who he's playing with, and his potential ceiling, if you had to make me guess right now what Kevin Bahl will be in 2 to 3 years, he's probably a number 4 defenseman on a good NHL team. At least that's what I think the Flames should be projecting that he is. Now, what kind of term do you then give out to someone who is a second pair defenseman? To me, this comes down to how difficult you think finding a defenseman like that is. It's obviously not the most difficult thing to do, but there's also still value in finding and keeping those types of players, not to build your team around, but just as a player that is part of your organization. All that being said, I think I would give Bahl about a 6-year deal ranging between $3.5 to $4.5 million per year. This locks him up all through his prime years. And if all he does become is a 3rd pair guy on a good team, it definitely is an overpay, but it's not an egregious one that will cripple your cap structure, especially with the rising cap going forward. And the deal could be moved if needed if the Flames need cap space in the future. It's not an immovable deal, especially, again, as the cap increases going forward. Okay, now into probably the more interesting pieces. Those are two intriguing players, but these next two are, I think, Flames fans are a little bit more excited about. So first off, with Matthew Corronato, he's probably been the Flames' best young skater this season. He's scored over 20 goals. I believe he's 22 now. He's the first Flame to do that at this age since Matthew Tkachuk, which has everyone, including myself, very excited. The only knock against Corronato is that going into his first round of RFA negotiations is his lack of experience. He'll only have about 112 NHL regular season games, so about a year and a half. About a year and a half of time in the league. The Flames could bridge him to get more data and risk having to pay him a lot more if he really blows up these next 2 years and produces even more than he has this year. Or they could gamble, give him a big payday now, a little bit early, with a limited NHL track record, and hope that as he grows as a player, he'll make that deal look like an absolute steal. I think Corronato is the exact type of player you make that gamble on. The main reason being is he's a very strong 5-on-5 player. At least he has been this year. He's one of 4 Flames players where the Flames have a positive expected goal percentage with him on the ice at 5-on-5 and negative expected goal percentage at 5-on-5 without him on the ice with a minimum of 50 games played. So basically the Flames are better with him than they are without him. I think it's also important to note this is not solely because he played with Backlund and Coleman, which he did for a little bit, but in about 116 minutes played with Huberdeau and Frost, that line has a 56.7% expected goal share. And of all Flames forward line combos that have at least 90 minutes played together, so about 5-ish games, Corronato is the only player that's on the best 3 Flames lines for expected goal percentage. So each of the 3 best expected goal percentage lines with at least 90 minutes played, Coronato's on each one of them, and the players around him change. He has a 13.5% shooting percentage this year, which is a little high. I think, but I think he will be an above-average shooter in the NHL, and his shooting percentage will fluctuate somewhere between 10 and 15%. And what I'm trying to say is, with 22 goals in 72 games, I think Coronato's production isn't an outlier. It's sustainable and could even tick up as he enters his prime years. So again, all of that to say is I think he's a really strong 5-on-5 player. 5-on-5 play is sustainable and predictive, and therefore I think he has the potential to be a top-line right winger if he has an elite center to play with, or at the very least be a very strong second-line right winger. Which means I think the Flames should lock him up now so that in 3 to 5 years he's on a discount deal. Not as your best forward. I don't think if Matthew Corronato is your best forward in 3 to 5 years, you're probably not a very competitive team. But if he's your 3rd or 5th best forward, I think you're really cooking with something there, and therefore would be a player that I would want to keep. I would want the Flames to sign for those years to have as they continue this build. So I would sign Corronato to a contract that's between 6 to 8 years and an AAV of between $5.5 to $6.5 million per year. Next up is Connor Zary, who's in a very similar situation as Corronato. The difference being that Zary has the potential upside of potentially being a center, which has more position scarcity, but due to some injuries, will have the same amount of NHL games played as Corronato, despite being a year older. Zary's produced a shade over a half point per game on a team that lacks high-end offensive talent to surround him, and he's rotated between power play 1 and power play 2. So he hasn't solely just been on power play 1 within his time in the NHL. Similar to Corronato, again, I see Zary somewhere between being your 3rd or 5th best player when this team is entering its true competitive window as a contender. So that's either as a second-line center or first-line left winger. If he has to fall back to be your second-line left winger, though, that's still a very valuable player that, again, you want to keep in your organization as you continue this build. So, and again, similar to Corronato, Zary is one of those 4 Flames players this season that has positive expected goal percentage 5-on-5 with him on the ice, And the Flames have a negative expected goal percentage 5-on-5 without Zary on the ice. So again, the Flames are this year have been better 5-on-5 with him than without him. So if the production's similar, the 5-on-5 play is similar, and the number of NHL games is similar, and the ceiling is similar, I'd be willing for this exercise to just give Zary the same deal as Corronato, 6 to 8 years, $5.5 to $6.5 million per year. And then lastly, there's Adam Klapka. I'll keep it really simple. Klapka reminds me a lot of Dewar when Dewar first came up and showed some flashes, a big fourth liner. So for the purposes of this exercise, let's just say Klapka gets 2 years, $1 million per year. So that's my take on all the big to medium to small RFAs that the Flames have to deal with this summer. To me, the Flames have the Flames front office has two big priorities this summer. It's signing all of these guys that I talked about to new deals, as well as trading Kadri and Anderson in the offseason. But we'll have an entire summer to talk about what the Flames should and shouldn't do. For now, I guess the Flames are still somehow in the playoff hunt, so let's see what they can do with 5 games left. And if they can miraculously make the playoffs. Despite it being a huge surprise, and I never saw this coming, the Flames in April still have a chance to make the NHL playoffs, which is crazy. So I guess let's just enjoy these last however many games that they're still in this hunt. And until next time, I'll talk to you guys again.